This is Dr. Sharon Pepukayi, Superintendent of Talbot County Public Schools with PepTalk. Welcome to my monthly podcast, PepTalk. Today I'd like to engage and connect parents and teachers in a meaningful conversation about an issue that affects us all, anxiety. Today we're talking with Kessler Bickford, an Easton-based psychotherapist who specializes in treating anxiety in teenagers and adults. She has a master's degree in pastoral counseling from Loyola University, is certified in ISTDP, which stands for Intensive Short-Term Dynamic Psychotherapy, and she's a faculty member at the Washington School of Psychiatry. We'll talk to Kessler about the true meaning of anxiety, why feelings can be scary, and how we can be our own emotional coach when anxiety strikes. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Glad you're here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off. We frequently hear the words anxiety and anxious, but it's rarely, if ever, defined. Can you start by defining anxiety?
Yes, I'd love to. But first, I'm curious to ask you, as someone who's outside of the clinical world, how do you personally understand anxiety?
I don't know a lot about it, I guess, in the technical sense. From my experience, it's having parents who have come to me in the past, being a teacher, a building administrator, district administrator, coming to me to talk about their student having feelings, being afraid to come to school,
Right.
And actually using the word. My kid has anxiety about ABC.
Right.
And so after saying it, then explaining what that is. So just listening to that, I'm assuming because they've named it and tagged it, it is.
Right.
But then I'm not sure. Maybe because the examples that the student has given the parent and then the parent to me, maybe it's not. So those are the experiences that I've had with, and mostly communicating with parents and them bringing it up and saying what it is.
Right. So it's more like through student behaviors.
Correct.
You're talking
Yes.
about. Yeah, right. Well, that's absolutely a huge piece of the anxiety puzzle. Simply put, anxiety is our body's response to emotions that we're afraid to feel, that we're scared to feel, that we don't want to deal with, that we'd rather just avoid. So these are feelings that we're currently feeling that we don't want to deal with. And I like to use the analogy of walking in the woods and running into a grizzly bear, right? Not a pleasant experience. When you see that bear, your body tenses, right? Your heart races, your palms sweat, your vision might get blurry. And the same reaction happens when we experience emotions that scare us, right? So let's take, for example, sorrow, sadness, they're the same. If we suddenly feel sad, and that's a feeling we struggle to experience or to let people see come out of us, right? We become tense. Our heart races, our stomach gets queasy, etc. And that's anxiety. It's a fear response to feelings we're scared to feel. So speaking of feelings, Dr. Pepukayi, how about we give you a little quiz? Here we go. There are 5 feelings, right? We're talking about anxiety and how it's fear of feelings.
Okay.
And there are 5 feelings.
All right.
Okay. Drum roll, please. Can you name these 5 feelings?
All right. So I'm being transparent here.
Okay.
So, happiness, sad,
Yes.
scared,
Okay.
surprised, and gosh, did I already say fearful?
I think you did. Yes.
Gosh, happy, sad, surprised, fearful, and I don't know, excited. Did I say excitement?
Well, we'll put that under the happy category. Yeah.
Embarrassed, maybe, shocked. I don't know.
That's a good one.
The 5th one I'm struggling with.
Okay.
Because there's 4 that I, just knee-jerk think, oh, these are kind of what I go through with feelings.
Sure.
It's just emotions.
Absolutely.
But I'm stumped on the 5th.
Okay.
And when you say it, I'm probably going to be like, oh, yeah, that's
I knew
it.
that. Right.
Yeah.
So yes, sorrow is absolutely
Okay, I'm going to write this down. I got that. Yep.
Happiness and love. We're going to put those under the same.
Okay,
category,
same umbrella. Okay.
Right? Anger.
That That's the one I was missing.
Okay.
Okay.
Guilt.
Oh, I didn't have that one either. Okay.
And the other G word, grief.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
So love, anger, sorrow, guilt, and grief.
Okay.
Now, I know there
That's
are those charts
interesting.
you can Google, feelings, and they'll come up with
a lot of
different options, right?
Exactly.
I liked it. It's just easier if you make it those 5, I think, if you just break it down to 5.
Because then the others kind of are couched in those. Okay.
Yep. Or what we call cover words, like, irritated is the same as angry.
Got it. Okay.
Annoyed is the same as angry.
Okay.
So they all can kind of be the same word. So anxiety occurs when we have a fear response to one of those 5 feelings or 2 of those 5 feelings, right? Because you can feel more than one feeling at one time. So anxiety, you can kind of Nancy Drew this. Anxiety is always your clue, okay? It's a clue that there's an emotion going through you that you're afraid to feel, don't want to feel, rather avoid.
So if I had to clarify this, this is really good. I'm actually learning a lot here. So, and I like the way you put it's a clue. So basically, we have these feelings that naturally, for whatever happens. And so anxiety are these emotions that begin inside of us.
Yes.
That are tagged to one of these 5.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Learned something new today.
Good. Yeah.
I did. So then it makes me wonder why someone would be afraid to face these emotions.
Right. That's a really good question, right? And I think in some of our families, showing emotion was considered a weakness.
I would agree with that.
Okay. So if we showed our feelings, they would either be sometimes ignored or even met with punishment.
Okay.
Right? So that helps us understand why for some feelings are unwelcome or scary, because showing them elicited some sort of rejection by the people we loved.
Okay.
Okay. But the last time I checked, it's not a crime to have emotions, right? In fact, our feelings supply us with critical information, right? Who we love, who we don't love, what we love to do, who's safe, who's dangerous, right? And emotions give us all that amazing information, right? That isn't necessarily coming from our cognitive self, it's coming from our emotional self. And when we block our feelings because we don't like them or we're afraid of them, we miss this critical information about ourselves and life direction sometimes.
So I think this is a pertinent topic for kind of going into the topic of the staff we have and our teachers. And it's teacher appreciation. And I can still consider myself a teacher at heart. That's how I started in the profession. And so speaking of our beloved teachers, what steps can teachers take to deal with anxiety? Because now, as I'm out in the field, I'm talking to teachers, the demands are more. And so right now in the age of education, and we hear, a lot of the demands, teacher shortage, teachers are leaving.
Right.
What can teachers do to deal with their own anxiety?
Well, I have two thoughts for you for that. I think first, and you'll like this first answer, it begins with education.
Okay.
We need to give teachers emotional training so that they can understand their own emotions, right? Where these feelings light up in the body, what they feel like, how to tolerate them, how to not be afraid of them, and how to use them for wisdom and decision making, right? And teachers, you're right, teachers are constantly triggered emotionally, right? Love, anger, sorrow, guilt, grief, all the feelings, they're confronted with them daily, right?
Yep, definitely.
And if teachers aren't adept at maneuvering their own emotions, they'll have burnout just from anxiety alone, right? So, the truth is, and I'm not singling out teachers, the truth is none of us are born knowing anything about our feelings. Like just as you need academic instruction to mature your intellect, you need emotional education to learn about and master your own emotional self, right? And your relationships. Every human being should be able to be taught how to read, write, do arithmetic, if anybody knows what arithmetic is anymore, and understand how to handle themselves emotionally.
Uh-huh.
It used to be, it was really important to balance a checkbook. Well, nobody does that anymore.
Right,
But
exactly.
you should still be taught how to handle and be familiar with your emotions. So, second, I think it would be a gift to teachers to provide them with a regular venue to assemble with a moderator, kind of like you'd find in group therapy, to constructively discuss their emotions, their struggles, and collaborate on solutions. And I think this could go a long way in bolstering a sense of community among teachers. So this combination of emotional training, right, which was the first answer, and the sort of group therapy for teachers during the school year could go a long way in keeping them refreshed, ready, and, feeling more powerful and confident in the classroom.
So, number one, you said emotional training. Number two, group therapy and creating that space for the discussion.
Yeah.
So I am a big proponent of self-care, and you've probably heard self-care. So would you say this all is under that umbrella of self-care?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, there's those great self-care moments like a bath and a walk and, time with your animals that can, really take you away from the stress. But there's also this more direct route, which is teaching teachers about themselves so they can understand how they operate and take that into the classroom.
Okay.
With them. Yeah.
So then, right now, when I'm talking to teachers, there's never enough time.
Right.
And so being a former fifth grade teacher, I had 30 students. There's a lot I have to cover. I have to keep up with pacing. So how can teachers do all of that?
Yes.
And also manage their anxiety in the classroom?
Yes. And this is something I think we all have to balance, is that education about self and then taking it out into the workplace, into your home, being able to walk the walk, So this may sound completely revolutionary, what I'm about to say, but teachers might begin to pay a little more attention to themselves in the classroom. Be there for themselves when their emotions are triggered, right? So remember, anxiety is what happens when we avoid or ward off our feelings. So the remedy, right, is to allow yourself to internally experience that feeling so that you're not gobbled up by anxiety.
Okay.
So I like the idea of being your own emotional coach when challenging feelings arise. So if you're going to walk into an environment where chances are you're going to get triggered somewhere, your anger is going to, get triggered, or your grief might be triggered. When you be alert, like when you start to feel that emotions start to move, you can have a secret coach-like dialogue with yourself to help that feeling, not block it, but to help it move all the way through you like a wave so it can wash out the anxiety. Okay? And the cool thing about this is that being your own emotional coach, no one will ever know what's happening because it's happening internally. Right? It's a little secret between you and you, right? So, for example, if I'm feeling a little bit of anger and I know I'm walking into a room where this might happen, I can coach myself through that. Like, okay, Kessler, there it is. I just felt it. Okay. And I'm going to let that anger come up. Okay. This is all happening internally, right? I'm going to go ahead and let that come up through my stomach, through my chest, right? I'm just tracking with myself through my throat, through my jaw, and kind of out like a breath.
Got it.
Okay, so I've tolerated. I'm not afraid of that feeling. I haven't said anything to anyone. I'm just coaching myself through the emotion, right? And once that feeling comes all the way through you, there'll be a sense of release, right? And all the while, you haven't said a word out loud, right? No visible impulse. You've addressed only yourself. And once that feeling has come all the way through, you can then decide if it's beneficial to take it further, to have, a conversation, with the person, etc. What do you think about that?
So just actually listening to you do that seemed like it was only a couple minutes, a few minutes.
Right.
And I can totally see how a teacher or staff member could suppress all of that.
Yes.
Like the switch goes off, you
Right.
feel it, and you suppress it.
Yes.
Versus taking a couple of minutes
Yeah.
to go through that
Right.
just really quick and go through those
Yeah.
steps that could give you, a whole hour, a couple hours, the rest of the day
Yeah.
of going through, of
Right.
dealing with that.
Right.
So that's actually a very interesting, your own emotional coach
Mm-hmm.
and an interesting tip on what teachers can do. So I appreciate you going through that. I think this whole notion, like you said, the 5 feelings that we have, what anxiety is, what we can do about it right in the moment.
Right.
In the classroom for our teachers, I think is a huge value add that can really help our staff, continue to enjoy the profession and enjoy what they do each and every day.
Right.
I think this was really good for you to come and spend some time to talk about that because it's real. And I think, like I said, I talked to a lot of staff members in and out of the district about what they're doing, why they're staying, why they're leaving. And I know anxiety is something that comes up in a lot of the conversations. So I really appreciate you being here to discuss that.
Yeah, it was great fun. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, anytime.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
This is Dr. Sharon Pepukayi, Superintendent of Talbot County Public Schools with PepTalk.